Welcome to the Union Weekly Insider. I'm Andrew Linde, another name out there as the Union News Club.
Welcome to the Union Weekly Insider. I'm Allison Meyer. This is the official podcast for the Union Weekly out of Cal State Long Beach. And this week, we're doing something a little different. When I first started working on this podcast at the beginning of the semester, Andrew had always had the idea that I would eventually make a whole episode on my own. So that's what I'm doing. Today, I'm taking you behind the scenes of this podcast and the man behind the microphone. But first, some news. As you may know, in the past week, Donald Trump was elected president. According to Editor-in-Chief Alex Ramos, this was the cause for some big changes to the feature.
The original feature was going to be on mental health among students, just because we had an incident on campus with a student committing suicide. And we felt that we could go off of that and start a conversation and talk about why students suffer with mental health issues and what can be done to fix it. But we changed it because the election happened, and it ended up being not the way most people wanted it to go. And so a lot of people had feelings about it.
The election was also cause for some tension in the office. I asked some of our staff what their initial reactions were to Donald Trump's rise to power. Managing editor Bailey Mount was still holding out hope as she watched the elections.
Okay, so what happened was I kept hoping that he wasn't going to win, and even though I'm very bad at math, I kept doing tallies going, okay, if she gets this amount of states, she could still win it. So eventually I was stressing myself out too much by looking at all of that. So I just went to go shower. When I came back from the shower, he'd already won. So then I considered going back in the shower. But then I realized, that wouldn't solve anything. So as the numbers climbed, I honestly just felt like I was watching one of those what-if scenarios, kind of like a Mythbusters sort of thing. But this turned out to actually be true. And even though he's not president yet, he's just president-elect. And by the time January comes around, I don't think it's going to be much better.
Opinions editor Jordan Daniels, on the other hand, was not taken back by Trump's win.
I wasn't surprised. I don't want to say expected it, but I wasn't surprised that happened because from the get-go, I had, at least for myself, my circle of people, I would say, he's a threat and you have to take him seriously. What he's saying is inciting people to say things that they wouldn't say in any other given time, and so you have to understand that, he's a serious threat. What he's saying, people believe in, and you can't underestimate that. So I wasn't surprised. I wouldn't say I was angry either, because the whole day I was like, it's gonna happen.
A resident copy editor, Sheila Sater, couldn't stand the reactions from the people around her.
No, there was this point in the evening where people were making being really dramatic, oh my god, I can't believe what's happening, and they're posting memes or they're making jokes, and it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, I don't want to make any jokes about this. This is very serious. I was absolutely terrified. There was it was a really intense wave of reality and wave of dread, and having a complete realization that our country is a million times bigger than just Long Beach, and there's thousands and thousands of these bigots, or not bigots, but these conservative people, and that really believe in his idea. And it just it hit me that he was winning. And I was I don't want any jokes. I made a status on Facebook. I was I don't want any jokes. I don't want anybody to be over dramatic. I'm scared. Please help. I'm very scared. And that was kind of it. That was my first reaction to it.
Setting sights on the future, I asked about what hopes they had for Trump's presidential term. Jordan was optimistic.
Hope in the future. I will say, I think a good thing that came out of this is that he truly will be under a microscope, a pinhole microscope, really, because a lot of stuff that he said he'd do, it's not feasible. So I think it'd be interesting to see what he does. I mean, so I hate saying this, but yes, he very well could be a quote-unquote good president, maybe an average one, if he shapes his act together. I will say this, his acceptance speech winning speech, objectively, was like a clear. It was a good speech. It was a good speech objectively. So sometimes you think like he was playing a game from the get go. Like he was playing the game. Like he was so radical, in the sense of like so extraneous what he was saying, so loud and out there that people listened to him. And now he toned down, immensely for this last speech, right? And you think about it, if he had done that, if he had spoken the same way through the entire election, I 100% don't believe he would have been elected. So I think President Trump, I hate that saying out loud, President Trump will be different from candidate Trump. What the future, I think, is still bleak, as long as Mike Pence is his VP, because I fear him more than anything. Well, not fear him, but I don't like him more than anything because he believes in a horrible system of things. So I'm fearful of the future, but at the same time I also am uncertain too. It honestly could go either way at this moment in time. The other half of me is hoping out. The other half of me is like holding out on like a way that we will remove both of them from office somehow. Whether it's like through riot, revolution, or just petitions to impeach them both. But yeah.
Sheila, however, found this to be difficult.
That's a hard question. That's a really hard question. Because, like, of course, like, you, as human beings, we feel, like, an immediate desire to hope. We, even the biggest pessimists have hope. And, like, so it's, like, a really hard question, and of course I have hope. I'm just wondering if it's realistic.
But she also had found purpose.
I feel like because of this election, like, a lot of things in my future have kind of been decided. Because I never want something like this to ever happen again. So I need to do something. And so like it feels very much like my future's kind of been set in stone, rather than like last week we had like an issue where I was like, I have no idea what I want to do, and now I'm like, I know what I need to do. Like I know where I need to serve.
Who is Andrew Linde? I tried asking the man himself.
Who are you?
I'm Andrew Linde.
Elaborate!
I don't know what this means.
Okay.
Clearly, I was unsuccessful in gaining answers, so instead, I decided to ask around the office. I started with first impressions. Sheila had one word.
Snarky.
And then she had some more.
Really? But like, see, I feel like we're all like variations of like the same kind of idea of human, which is just like smart, snarky, smart, like just people like just collaborating who are super nerdy. And I think like, I don't know him very well, like personally, but I think he's like a really cool guy who's just distant and like he's very smart and knows his stuff.
Bailey was at a loss for words.
I thought he was a little, oh God, what's the word? There's a word. It's not old-fashioned, but it's kind of like that. He would know the word. He has this thing that he does where he throws old people words at me that I don't know, and then he defines them. So, one of those words.
Our distribution manager, Chris Orozco, however, had a very different first impression.
I thought he was a creep back in Molly's era. Like, he always wore glasses, sat there during the meetings. And I was like, who's this guy sitting in glasses, not talking with us? It was always weird. Like, it looked like a creepy homeless guy going to our meetings. And I thought it was weird. Like, he never said hi or anything. Like, he always smiled. It was kind of creepy.
Thankfully, first impressions aren't everything, and many of the staffers at the Union Weekly enjoy working alongside Andrew. Sheila appreciates his dedication to his work.
Fun, because I don't have to like worry about like, when he was like entertainment like editor, like I never had to worry about, I wasn't there a lot, but when I was there helping, I didn't have to worry about him not having articles in on time. I didn't have to worry like that he wouldn't have content, and he cares like a lot, like deeply about
what he's doing. So entertainment section, like, he cared a lot. Like, podcast, he cares a lot. You can tell. And I like that. I think it's fascinating.
As well as the way he makes the office more inviting.
He's just really fun. He brings Nerf guns to the office. He starts an all-out Nerf war. And, like, because of him, like, the office feels a million times cooler. Like I had my friend Flint come in, and he was like, I'm jealous of how you work. I'm jealous of that, like, this is what you get to do every day. And I'm like, yeah, you should be. We're pretty cool.
Alex is thankful for the skill set that Andrew brings to Union Weekly.
He knows this stuff when it comes to doing podcasts. I guess he's been doing it for a long time, and we're actually really lucky that he brought that skill here, because now we have this great podcast that people actually enjoy listening to, which actually surprised me because I didn't think anybody liked podcasts.
Do you listen to the podcast?
I do listen to the podcast, but I don't know. For some reason, I thought no one else outside of this office would listen to it. And every week or so, it seems like people come in. They're like, oh, I just listened to the latest episode of the podcast. I really loved it. And I was like, oh, shit, people are actually listening to this. They really like it.
Surprisingly, not many of our coworkers actually listen to the podcast. For many of them, they just have a hard time finding the time. For Sheila, it was a hard time finding the podcast.
I love podcasts, but I just didn't know where to find it. And it's like hard to find because I was like Google searching it. But I'm here. We out here. It's here. It's on my laptop right now, Andrew. It's here.
So in other words, you wouldn't have anything to say about the podcast because you haven't listened to it
Well, I've
yet.
heard parts of it when he's like sampling it and he's like editing it. And like it sounds really put together. And I'm pretty sure I've heard like snippets of it elsewhere. And it sounds really well put together and like professional.
Bailey, on the other hand, just doesn't want to relive what she's already been through.
I'm always doing something else. And then when I finally sit down at the end of the day and have some time to myself, I don't want to listen to something that came out of this office. I live here. I can't do it anymore.
Regardless, Bailey is happy with what Andrew has done with the podcast.
I like what he's doing so far. I like that he's branching out and it's not just behind the scenes stuff in the Union Weekly now and us doing random quotes. I like the thing with the contributors, even though some of the contributors, oof. I like what he's doing. I like how he's branching out and doing different things and giving us different things. And I like that he's doing all of this, knowing that this is his last year and he really didn't have to do any of this. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of my older than me son.
Eventually, I was able to sit down with Andrew and get some answers. Andrew transferred to Cal State Long Beach in 2014 and began working with the Union Weekly almost immediately.
I started as a contributor, and then I was also on the media board. That was like a weird thing. But then Katie became editor-in-chief, and I applied for entertainment editor. Then I got that. And then after that, now I'm the multimedia manager.
While only beginning this podcast last spring, Andrew has been in the business a lot longer.
I think it was 2010 or 2011. Somewhere in there, because okay, so podcasts as in just an audio format, that was definitely 2011. But before that, I was doing like stuff with video elements, like web streaming video, when I was at Cypress College. But then it was from that I was like, I want to get into the audio podcasts. And then I've been doing that since then. Now I have like a podcast network. I'm like, yeah, it just keeps growing.
Finally, I wanted to focus on us, the Union Weekly Insider, and its humble beginnings.
I mean, kind of the history of specifically the Union Weekly Insider.
So a year ago, fall of 2015, I wanted to do it. I was just the entertainment editor, but I wanted to have a podcast. I wanted to make a podcast about the Union Weekly. I just think in podcasts, like it's like a weird second language. But it was a lot of work. I was on my own. I didn't have an assistant. So it was just, I was going through like a whole bunch of audio and asking a bunch of questions and trying to make a show that made sense, but I was also making it where the show, each episode corresponded to the issue that was being made. And so everything was very timely. And so I was trying to make the episodes faster than I could process all the audio for the previous week. So it just became extremely difficult, and it kind of died after, I think, 4 episodes. And there was some good stuff in there. I was still working it out, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that I started there, like, continued on, like, the same style, the same kind of documentary approach, I guess, to seeing how does this paper get made and who are the people behind it.
Compared to last semester, Andrew feels that the podcast is going well.
I think much better. I think the podcast is only getting better. Of course, in part thanks to you, but also, I don't know. I'm not a page editor anymore, so that gives me a lot more time to focus on the podcast. But yeah, and I'm trying new things. I had a meeting kind of with Alex where we were trying to figure out what's going to be the future of not just the podcast, but also the YouTube page, which is, I've been putting the podcast on there, but we want to do like more video things. Like if we could do short video clips that would either go on YouTube, or he was even thinking just putting them on Facebook to try and draw people to the website. But just growing stuff like that, maybe having a second podcast, that would be kind of exciting. We were throwing some ideas around for that. Just more is coming.
Andrew is graduating this spring, so my question is, what's going to happen when he's gone? Andrew has hopes that the podcast will live on without him, even if it's not the same.
I hope someone will be around who wants to keep it going. I mean, obviously it won't be the same as what I'm making, because whoever takes it over would have kind of a different vision, I would think. Because I'm building on the... there was a show on Gimlet Media called Startup, where their whole first season of that podcast was looking at how they made Gimlet Media, which is the podcast network that Startup is on. So it was very self-referential and looking at who made it and what they made and that kind of stuff. So if someone else comes in with a different idea inspired by something else, like just a lot of podcasts are just like 3 people sitting around a mic talking, and that's fine if that's what it turns into, I guess. But I like this kind of edited journalistic style of podcast better. Yeah, there were some ideas that we were throwing around, me and Alex, of doing just like more straightforward interview style, like the Jordan episode that I did. So I just hope whatever it is that it keeps going in some capacity. Like, it made me really sad when I was like, oh, the Union Weekly has a YouTube page and it hasn't been used in over a year. And it's like, well, I guess maybe no one passed that along and said, make sure someone puts something here,
Moving on from CSULB, Andrew believes his future lies in the medium of audio, if not podcasts.
Is my future in podcasts? Yeah. I've pretty much, what's the saying? I've hitched my wagon to that star. Is that how that goes?
I don't
my
know.
wagon to that horse.
Well, it's a star.
What star? Why are you hitching your wagon to a star?
Because then I go in the sky.
Anyway.
So you're a horse star.
Yeah, my horse star is flying in the sky. Yeah, I think either that or I might have to, what is it, like break into radio, I guess, like that's a thing that I'm able to do if podcasting doesn't quite take off the way that it's supposed to. I mean, that's why I started my own podcast network, so that I could be in control of kind of like advertising and sponsorships and that kind of thing, and be able to manage that aspect of it and earn an income that way. Not necessarily a living probably at first, but be able to get a little bit of money out of it. But yeah, I think I'm also like a fairly good writer of journalism articles. It's good to be multifaceted, but that's something that I definitely look into, the more of the writing aspect of it as well, beyond just audio. But yeah, I definitely want to continue with podcasts pretty much forever.
In the end, Andrew hopes that at the very least, people enjoy this podcast.
I mean, doing this kind of work isn't, easy, and I hope that there's someone listening who like appreciates what's being put together here. That there are people who consider themselves fans, or just anticipate the release of the next episode, or want to know what's going to happen next, or just enjoy. Like, I want people to enjoy what I'm creating.
That's Andrew Linde, and this has been a look behind the scenes of the Union Weekly Insider. Stay tuned for some fun moments and hints at future episodes. Thank you for listening to the Union Weekly Insider. To listen to more episodes, check us out on iTunes or any of your favorite podcast apps. New episodes of this podcast drop every Wednesday during the semester. Special thanks to multimedia assistant Allison, that's me, for additional editing and recording. Our multimedia manager is Andrew Linde. Music in this episode is from the YouTube audio library. You can find issues of the Long Beach Union Weekly online at lbunion.com and on Medium. Go to medium.com and search Long Beach Union Weekly. Please follow us on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Union Weekly.
This week on Union Weekly. Oh, I do kind of sound like him. Wow.
I'm Andrew Linde, and I always sound like I'm disinterested.
This week on the Union Weekly Insider. Hi, I'm Andrew Linde.
This podcast
This podcast this week is about me, Andrew Linde. Interesting little man.
I'm actually doing the podcast, so he won't be talking about himself.
Damn it. Hi, I'm Andrew Linde, and this is the podcast. Today's episode, we're going to talk about oranges and why I don't like them. I just like the color. And here's John. John, I want you to draw stuff for me. Can you do that? Or I'm going to shoot you with a Nerf gun.